the normal amount?
All right, you're up.
We are. There's an overlay over us. Good morning, everyone.
Can you believe we're in New Orleans?
We are in New Orleans.
Cheers.
Thanks for tuning in to Wake Up in Provincetown. We've got a very special episode for you today. Bob is traveling to New Orleans as we speak, so we have the lovely Senator Julian Sear filling in. Big shoes.
I'm gonna see if I can try to do my best.
I think you're gonna do a great job. If there's one person I know who could talk for an hour besides me and Bob, it is Julian Sear.
Thank you. I do talk for a living, but it's great to be here. Happy Veterans Day. It's Veterans Day. And we're thanking everyone who's served and making sure we continue to just support veterans.
Yeah.
Massachusetts, interesting fact, has the strongest veteran services in the entire country.
No way.
Yeah.
I mean,
right.
That seems right. We've got the best leadership, and we're ahead of the game with everything.
Wow.
But
how is it to be in New Orleans? This is your first time here.
This is my second time.
Your second time? Oh,
actually third. Yeah. So I used to spend my winters in Palm Springs while I was summer in Provincetown, and as I would road trip out that direction, I would always be sure to spring through New Orleans for a day or two. But this is my longest stay in New Orleans. We are all here in New Orleans or traveling on our way here for a very special event this weekend.
It's a very Provincetown wedding.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. A very Provincetown wedding in New Orleans. All the guys on Scruff are telling me that Provincetown is entirely taking over the city.
I received similar notifications being like, wait, why are all these guys from P-Town here?
Right.
Well, they're here for Hartley and Spalding's nuptials.
Yeah, the Chris's. Yeah, we're really excited. We're here for the weekend. We've got events tonight, tomorrow, and the next day. Are you ready?
Oh, yeah, honey. I'm ready. Yeah, it's... Last night was a tale of two strategies. I was like, you know what? I've had a big week. I was up really late Tuesday night, Wednesday.
Why?
I'm going to go to bed. A little thing we call an election,
right.
With historic wins. But, I sort of chose the path of like, you know what? I'm going to stay in, watch the first episode of White Lotus, and be ready to go for the morning.
Mm-hmm.
You actually took the appropriate New Orleans strategy.
I disagree.
You did.
It was appropriately New Orleans, but maybe not appropriate for me in this situation. Me, Sunny, and Benji arrived late on Wednesday, not late, but about 6 o'clock, and we immediately hit Bourbon Street. It is Benji's first time in New Orleans, so we wanted to give him a little show. Sunny's been here before, and he loved being our tour guide. I am a total travel sub, so I'm not good at that kind of stuff. Like, people keep asking me, like, oh, where are you staying? I'm like, I don't know. Like, oh, where did you go today?
You did send a message being like, I don't know my, bearings.
Right. I never make a point of, getting to know the geography of any place I visit, especially when I'm here with people that are very passionate about it. I'm just I'm going to grab the back of your t-shirt and, just take me
No, and it is kind of nice. I mean, I have, a very, dom travel mom, right? Who, loves to plan everything out. She's, a big planner. And so it is really nice to be like, all right, great. I'm going to see, all the sites without even having to do the work.
Right, exactly.
And New Orleans, I think New Orleans is one of the great American cities. I mean, this is a phenomenal place. We're in the Garden District right now.
Mm-hmm.
We're at Terrence Mack and Brett Alberti's home.
Yeah,
it's spectacular.
It's outrageous.
I feel like I want to be in a hoop skirt and come down I don't know, walk down the staircase.
You should have seen the way I greeted Trevor and Tim. I was spinning. I was like, just my southern home.
And what is it? It's 70 degrees.
It's pretty gorgeous.
It's a pretty gorgeous place to be. And y'all are closer to the French Quarter, right? It's New Orleans. You got the Quarter. You got Marigny and Bywater. You got the downtown. You got the Garden District. It's just a pretty phenomenal place.
Totally.
And we're gonna have a lot of fun. We're eating some really good food. I brought as my date Kelly Fields, who
New Orleans legend,
New Orleans royalty, but now Provincetown royalty. Kelly Fields, of course, is a dear friend of both of ours. James Beard award-winning pastry chef. Opened a little restaurant called Willa Jean here in New Orleans a couple years back. It's pretty darn infamous.
Yeah. She's got one cookbook out already. She's got another one
on the way. So we're gonna hear from Kelly, who is just a New Orleans legend, later in the show.
Yeah, and if you got a sandwich from Pop and Dutch this past summer, I'm sure she had her hands on it.
I love little notes she'd write to me.
Yeah.
Oh, the best. So we're here in New Orleans, but a lot's been happening in P-Town.
Yeah. One more thing about New Orleans. You know how I feel like most locals or townies in Provincetown, they don't typically drink the rum punch when you go to tea.
Girl.
You kind of do other things, and then the tourists kind of do the rum punches, right?
Mhm.
Trevor's laughing. He drinks a rum
I had
punch.
3 this past tea. That was
Yeah, but like the tourists come in. When you go to tea, if you're visiting Provincetown, you have to get a rum punch, and that's how I've been treating myself here in New Orleans. I've had, I think, 6 or 7 hurricanes so far,
Wow.
which is kind of like,
That's like your alcoholic quota for the month. Because
really
you're not a big drinker.
No, not at all.
I mean, you love an espresso martini,
Mhm.
but what is in a hurricane?
It's like another one. There's like 1,000 names for a drink that all seems the same. It's like rum and fruit juices, and that's exactly what it is. But it's been great. One of the most shocking things about New Orleans compared to Provincetown, I went to a bar with Sunny and Benji, and we got 1 hurricane and then 2 beers, and like fancy beers. They were like Blue Moon. I still not like fancy, but like not Miller Lite or anything. And the guy goes, "Oh, it's got $60." And I was like, okay. And I handed him like 60, and then I had like a little extra for a tip in my hand. And he's like,
He's
like, no, $16. And I was like, what?
Wow.
So obviously we had 4. And yeah, and
That's
I'm
fabulous.
feeling it this morning.
But you know what? That's how you should feel. And in this this is just an amazing American city. I mean, you should be going hog wild and all in. I will be there later today, I'm sure.
You're right. No, as I was heading out last night, Julian was like, "Oh, just I'm going to stay in tonight." I was like, "That was an option. I didn't realize that was an option. I would have chosen that."
I was up
option.
a little late on Tuesday night,
You're
but
right.
we're going to talk about that in a bit.
Oh yeah, let's talk about this past weekend in Provincetown. This past
Huge.
weekend in Provincetown was really fun and spectacular. It's turning into probably the must not miss weekend of the off season. I think so. I mean,
if you're a food and wine queen,
Mhm.
it's the weekend. I feel like the fall, like there's everyone has a weekend for their weekend, right? Like
Yeah.
but
No,
but
the
you
food-
did a lot of food and wine festivals.
Yeah, I
right?
did. I went to the Grand Tasting. Last year the Food and Wine Festival was super incredible, but it definitely like grew and evolved this past year. They added some more unique events. They got Jill to stay open an extra weekend at the boat slip, which I found really special.
I love Jill. Can we just give Jill a shout out? I feel like Jill and then John, her husband, have just really brought a real care and attention to the boat slip, and you really feel like when you go in there, you feel like your family. Phil gives you a big hug. He's also the director of the TSA, so if you fly to the Provincetown Airport, like early in the morning, you'll also see Phil there. But no, a real shout out to
literally
Jill.
everyone has 2 jobs in P-Town. It's wild.
Well, of course, how else can you make it?
Right. Yeah, but tea was really special because usually the last tea is Halloween weekend. And so you have last tea, they play last dance, but this one had a different vibe because it was like, you were there.
I was there on Sunday because, I had a little thing called an election going on and a campaign. So I was out knocking doors and doing organizing work for most of the weekend. So I missed the Food and Wine Festival piece, but I snuck back to P-Town, one for last tea on Sunday, and then also for the pie eating contest.
Oh, right.
Which...
Yeah. No, they added a few really, really special events for this past Food and Wine Festival. I'm sure there'll be even more for next year. But Julian, Bob, and who stepped in for Kelly because she was
Claire Adams and Rebecca Orshon. And I should say it's not a pie eating contest. It was a pie baking contest. So the Commons, which has been a tremendous, relatively new organization in P-Town, right, the last few years.
Yeah.
Both Rebecca Orshon of Pop and Dutch and Claire Adams, who you may know from Salty Market, now of Bagel Hound, teamed up to do a pie contest to raise some money for the Commons. Okay. So contestants had to bake 2 pies, one to be tasted and one to be auctioned off. Mm-hmm. And then you had me, Bob, and it was supposed to be Kelly Fields, but she was along with the weather. So Rebecca and Claire stepped in. Kristen Becker and Seed. Saltine was the sort of Kristen Becker was the auctioneer, I should say. Saltine and Seed. It was a lot of fun, and I got to literally taste like 20 pies or something. It was this meat pie, the pie that won. There were several pies that won. There was the 2 winning pies were a tourtière. It's a French meat pie. I don't know if we have the capacity to have this picture of this pie up there. This was a handsome pie. This is how I want my men. It was just divine.
Meaty.
Exactly. But also with like a nice flaky crust, right? Like not meaty, but not overly heavy. Right. You know what I mean? You felt... Anyway, so of course I bit on that meat pie and brought it home to my mom for her birthday dinner.
Do you know the final number for the pies?
how many pies we did?
No, how much money we raised? I don't think I actually have.
We raised a couple $1,000s. It was a great community event, and I really love. Real shout out to the Commons for doing these community focused events. Look, if you're a nonprofit organization, you got to be in the business of raising money, and look, the gala circuit, right, which I think we know well. But they've really focused on having these community led events, which are just a lot of fun, right, and everyone can come to. The fashion show was a good example of that this summer too. Yeah. I also got to be in that, so it's just a real like community. I don't know. I'm a big fan of their work, and I think that it's been a really helpful addition to Provincetown in the last few years.
And also, like, there's every once in a while there's an event where you're just like, this is so Provincetown. This is really special, and you just the feeling you get hanging out with all your friends and doing this event is really special. Like, I always think of the Bearded Mistress pageant at Provincetown Brewing Company as one of those nights. And I didn't make it to the pie contest, but like from the videos I saw, and it seemed like another one of those.
Pet Tea's another one. These sort of come one, come all sort of open community events.
And I think that's why I liked having Last Tea not be Halloween weekend, because it felt like that rather than.
Well, and Halloween has become like a 4-day costume death march, which we love. Like, I had a great Halloween weekend. But I think it is nice that like we kind of end the season in a more intimate, quiet manner.
Yeah. And as much as it was intimate and quiet, it was still raucous and lively and wild. It was great, and I hope, and I do think that there was enough business to come into tea for that extra weekend that I hope they'll continue doing in the future. I think it was definitely a success.
I mean, the extension of the season is pretty remarkable. I mean, this is a little before your time, right? But when I was growing up, like Halloween wasn't anything, right?
Really?
Oh my god! Like my childhood trick or treating is like driving in like a dark, like it's dark, right? Because daylight savings time would happen earlier, and we would literally just like go to my parents' friend's house, and they would like you'd go to like 5 houses in a costume, and they'd give you candy. There was not much. Nelson Ave always kind of had a good kind of trick or treating scene,
that's cute.
But Halloween was never sort of anything in Provincetown, and there's been a real concerted effort to extend the season. Look, I think it helps people, even from an economic perspective. If you're just working Memorial Day to Labor Day or Columbus Day, that's very different than being open April, in some places through New Year. So that's been a real success in the town and a real credit. And I think a lot of communities in the Cape and Islands are trying to do this. I know because I work with a lot of them, and Provincetown's had a lot of success. Yeah,
and being on the Visitor Services Board, I know that is definitely one of our biggest priorities.
Cheers to you for serving on a board.
Yeah,
I've got to say, like,
I picked the most fun one.
I'm pretty impressed with younger people in town, like under 50 or so, who've been willing to like really serve, and you look at what happens in our community. So much of what happens in our community, like y'all have a say at a town meeting. This isn't stuff that we control on Beacon Hill. And real credit for doing that. That can be it's not glamorous work necessarily.
It's not glamorous work, but
it's important.
And it feels really great to feel like you are steering the community that you love in the direction that you want it to go. Me and Eric Borg both serve on the board, and we've just because we have different perspectives than a lot of people that have been on the board, we've introduced some new types of advertising, and there's been a lot of fun stuff happening at the Visitor Services Board over the past couple of years.
So serve on a board.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk more about the Food and Wine Festival?
I have some statistics.
Wow.
So the grand tasting, which is kind of like the like the centerpiece event of the Food and Wine Festival.
Event.
Yeah. So last year, 2021, there were 237 tickets sold, which is a huge success, especially for your first year of something happening. But this year it went up to 326, almost 100 more tickets, and I think that just goes to show you what a great event it is, and to grow from already a really great start to then almost like add 50% more tickets over the next year, I think is a true success and a testament to the fact that this is going to be an event that is sticking around. And I also feel like between, like you said, Halloween being such a huge thing now, the Food and Wine Festival seeming like a huge success that is destined to become even bigger and bigger, Holly Folly, Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's.
Thanksgiving.
Yeah, I feel like in the next 5 years, we could fully extend the season through New Year's.
Well, and that'll really make a difference for people, right? Particularly given it's just, the cost of living in town, right? You need to have 2-3 jobs. You need that longer season just to make it. So really kudos. It's Matt King who does the Food and Wine Festival. That's really grown. I look forward to participating in an off election year.
Yeah, right.
Because on election season, you're pretty
You're a little
busy.
busy.
You're pretty busy that weekend. Yeah.
So this year there were only 9 ticketed events compared to 12 events last year, but that's because they added a few different style events like the pie eating contest, which is not a ticketed event. They added like a restaurant week theme to like a lot of the restaurants that were open, but they even outsold, even with 12 events last year compared to 9 events this year, they had 746 tickets sold to all those events last year, and they did 836 tickets to the events that happened this year.
Building.
Yeah, and every single person I know that was able to make it to the Crowns event that
I heard
for the Food and Wine Festival.
I didn't go. I just saw like images of like people dining on like a bird in a cage, and then you have like spooky like going around.
Right.
It looked like sensational.
Yeah, and that's
in a really cool way.
That's what I heard from every single person. Every single person who went to see it was like, "This was wild. We did not know what to expect, and it was just insane." I think Chris Racine had a hand in the lighting. They entirely changed the dive bar. Andrew Haig did some incredible work with sound and light as well. Jonathan Hawkins produced the event. And congratulations to all involved. Brittany, LMNOP, Mackenzie, Austin, Hillary, Spooky. There's one more. Joelle. Oh my God. Oh no.
What is this?
Sorry, I don't know.
Wait, can I talk about my idea for the Food and Wine Festival next year?
Sure.
I think we should have the Parm Off. I think we should have a little fundraiser, a little event called the Parm Off. Because like
have
in my
to be a judge.
I know you will be a judge. Because look, Provincetown has many wonderful things, and we have many wonderful restaurants.
Mm-hmm.
There is a real affinity for chicken parm. I feel like every other restaurant has a parm on the menu.
Mm-hmm.
And so we should have a parm off. Like, who has the best parm in town? And then like
that.
we'd have to like sit down and like judge the parms and be like, ooh, like the breading here,
That is
and
I mean,
it's a little, I mean, look, it's a little shade for the ubiquity of the parm on the menu. But then there's people, some people, right? Like that's what you want when you go out. You want a parm. Yeah. You want a breaded cutlet with a red sauce.
Yeah, yum.
So parm off, Matt King. I don't know who's listening, but I'm really wanting to do this parm off
hosted by
next year.
Julian Sear.
We'll make it a fundraiser for Cassis or something
Oh,
amazing, right?
I love that.
Yeah.
That's wicked cute.
Cool.
But speaking of next year's Food and Wine Festival, they haven't. Matt King is still mulling over events or ideas for the themes. It won't be a region or a country like it has been the past 2 years, he says. It's in his head. What did he say exactly? He said, it will not be a wine region or country. I have it in my head and it's percolating more ideas before I announce it. I'll just Taylor Swift Easter egg it this winter to guide your guesses, so be sure to follow them on Instagram. I also I want to meet with more business owners and groups and the continued sponsors to make sure the theme suits their ever-evolving festival. And he just wanted to say thank you to Provincetown for helping make my vision a success and supporting along the way. Yeah, so congratulations. Exactly. Congratulations to Matt King. Congratulations on your huge success, and thank you so much for doing such an incredible event in the off season.
Yeah. And it was a busy week also in municipal matters and town government.
Oh yeah.
There was a special town meeting on Wednesday. You weren't there. I don't know but there was good. There was really great outcome here. So in the special town meeting, this was all to take up 5 sewer-related articles, and all of them were passed nearly unanimously. Many of y'all probably remember the summer when the sewer failed for a few days. That was a real nail-biter. And really, right, 20 years ago, Provincetown, I would really say, made a real mistake, right, where they tried to have this, like, gravity, they basically tried to have a very small sewer system on the cheap. I'm a big fan of wastewater infrastructure. It's sort of my big signature policy piece, right? Because if you don't preserve the water quality, people are coming, right, to Provincetown and all of Cape Cod and the Islands for our pristine water. Well, guess what? It ain't that pristine. Because when you have Title V septic systems and more cesspools, it just leads to there's all this nitrogen in the saltwater embayments, all this phosphorus in fresh water. Like our embayments are really impaired. So there was 5 articles authorizing the borrowing of $75 million for the sewer expansion. It's a big chunk, but it's going to modernize the existing sewer. It's going to end this sort of checkerboard sewer district, which makes no sense.
We're all familiar with the map. Remember the brown areas?
The brown areas, right? Sometimes government does things you're like, wow, really brown? Route 6 gets altered a bit in this plan. They're using some recreational fields for subsurface wastewater disposal. But this is a big deal for the town. It's going to allow about like 40% growth, I think, around additional hookups. It's going to mean that businesses aren't kind of held hostage if they want to, open longer, or it's going to be a really helpful piece. So it's a $75 million expansion. It was passed near unanimously. Big kudos to the town government, Alex Morris, the select board, Dan Riviello, for working this through. Rarely in Provincetown do you have such a lively municipal government. Usually town meetings pretty raucous. This was not raucous. So it's $75 million, but we actually think about 40% of this is going to be covered by USFDA grants. There's also a little something called the Cape Cod and Islands Water Protection Fund, which is actually my baby and Sarah Peak's baby, a wastewater fund that we established in 2018. It takes a surcharge on room occupancy. It's already funded $31 million in projects across Cape Cod. And by the way, what is wastewater really important to achieve? Not just the environmental protection and water quality, but housing, right? So wastewater really enables us to do more housing. So this is a big deal.
It's important. Very important.
Yeah.
Speaking of things happening in town, it just got approved that the town is going to get a big grant. I don't know if anyone was in town for winter of 2018, but in early January there was a huge low pressure storm that happened, and it basically floodwater surged over the beach, like kind of behind like Cafe Maria, the kite shop, that area, and it flooded all of Gosnell Street, all around Town Hall, even as far back as Bradford. And we do know that little back area behind Town Hall at Bradford, even when there's heavy rain, tends to get a little flooded. But so for the past few years, they've had kind of like a temporary dune put in place to kind of hide, or to make that not happen again. But we just got what was the exact number? $80,000 to help with the dune project.
From the state. You're welcome.
I love that. So this dune is going to run basically from behind Nine Rider, and then it's going to cut across that beach there to basically the back of the Crown and Anchor, and that is going to prevent this from happening in the future. I think a bunch of homes were flooded. Town Hall was flooded.
Oh yeah, and then that March in 2018, there was 3 back-to-back nor'easters, where just the level. I mean, look, in a community like Provincetown that is right in the water, we are uniquely vulnerable to the effects of worsening storms, to climate change. But these are part of natural strategies that I think are really effective. I think increasingly we're learning that, hey, we don't need to try to so much as tame nature, but we need to work with nature to help us absorb these rising seas, the storm surge. There's a huge project in Wellfleet. Do you know about the Herring River Project?
Oh, yeah.
This is the largest ecological restoration on the eastern seaboard, so basically north of Florida. It's a big deal. So congrats to P-Town, though. This dune's going to it will make a difference the next time we get a storm, and we will have another storm like that. We'll have,
probably more and more every year. Should we talk about the election?
Oh my God, do you want to know about the election? What do you think about the election?
Well, first things first, I want to give a huge congratulations to everyone, but especially Senator Julian. He got the most votes in Provincetown than any other person on the ballot.
I know.
Brag, such a brag.
Sorry, Maura.
Even more than Maura. We love Maura, but we love Julian here more. Sorry about it.
No, I mean, it's wild. This is my 4th term. So I'm still among the youngest senators, but this is my 4th term. I'll be going into my 7th year.
And that's a testament to what a great job you're doing. That the people in this community know you, they trust you, they know you're doing great work, they know you're in the State House fighting for us every day and the things that we want.
Well, not just, the Cape and Islands District is bigger than just Provincetown. It's 20 communities across the Cape and Islands. And to get reelected with 63% of the vote is it's a real kind of honor, and I'm really proud of what we've been able to deliver for the Cape and Islands. I'm really fired up to keep doing that work, and we're gonna have fabulous new partners at the state level and even at the regional county level. So this is a huge night for Democrats in Massachusetts, and really for not just Democrats, but a real changing of the old guard. Right, Massachusetts has sort of long been a state where the statewide politics have been dominated by men, almost all of whom are straight and white. A real sort of ethnic politic, right, that was built sort of from immigrants and lasted for decades. And that's really shattering. To have Maura Healey, be elected as our next governor. No one had ever heard of. Well, you had heard of Maura Healey before 2014 because you used to wait. You'd serve her at Chops in Boston. But
her sister's a good friend of mine.
God, I love the Healy's. They're just like the Healy sisters, and Terrence too. There's a Healy brother, but the fact to have more someone who no one had heard of before 2014 when she ran for Attorney General, to have her shatter this glass ceiling. Right, we've never elected a woman governor. To do it with Kim Driscoll, who's going to be the first lieutenant governor, the first sort of governor, lieutenant governor, all-women team. To have someone like Andrea Campbell, a phenomenal woman, a black woman, as our next attorney general. My friend Diana Zaglio was elected auditor. She's a fellow 30-something. This is a significant amount of change in Massachusetts, and I think increasingly we're becoming a Commonwealth where our representatives and the people who are serving us look like us, and I think that's so important. Yeah. And then closer to home, we had a huge night. So actually 2 weeks ago, right? Y'all had Donna Buckley.
Last week? Was
it just last week?
Yeah.
Oh my God. So Donna won.
Yeah.
Donna won. Donna won a race with like under 3,000 votes. And this is phenomenal, right? This is someone who did not only launched her campaign in March. She ran against a very formidable opponent, Tim Whalen, who's a good guy and a friend of mine, who I think everyone expected would be the next sheriff. And Donna really came from behind. It was a late night at the Cape Cod Resort and Spa in Hyannis. On Tuesday, I was there, but truly phenomenal. Also, Rob Galaboy's won his district attorney race. Rob, a phenomenal candidate. Both Donna and Rob are going to really shake up the status quo as it relates to criminal justice on Cape Cod. The current incumbents, Republicans, have held those seats since I think I was in preschool, and Republicans have always held those seats. If you look at criminal justice metrics in Barnstable County, it's not good, okay? Over 20% of pretrial detainees are black men. Under 4% of our population is black, right? That really shows a glaring inequity. So having Donna win, having Rob win, there's Donna right there. She's so fabulous. I'm just like, and as someone who does a lot of, substance use and mental health work, at any given time, about 70 to 80% of the people who are serving time in the county correctional facility are struggling with mental illness, are struggling with substance use disorder, right? They need treatment. They need a plan around how do they get reintegrated into our communities. If you're serving time in the county jail, you're coming back to our community, right? You're only serving time for 2 years or less, and so to have Rob, to have Donna, we also reelected Ron Bergstrom as our county commissioner. So we're you might have heard of a guy named Ron Beatty. He's not coming back. So when I was first elected in 2016, Democrats only held really 3 seats on the Cape and Islands. You had Sarah Peak, right. And then I sort of took the seat that Dan Wolf held, and then Dylan Fernandez also took a seat from a Democrat. All the other seats were held by Republicans, state representatives, the other state senator, held all the county offices. Now that has really changed with this election. Now there are what's going on? I don't know. Now we only have 2. I have 2 colleagues on the Upper Cape who are Republicans, but otherwise this is a tremendous sea change.
Yeah. And not only locally did we do a really good job, but nationally it was just really, really, really exciting news. Especially the last couple presidential elections, those election years, we were fairly confident going in, and then to not.
Oh, honey, I remember. I was elected on 2016 was my first election.
You were yay, but no.
Oh, that was awful.
But yay.
It was great. Yeah. Me and legal weed were the only 2 silver line.
So to go into this one kind of thinking we were going to take some hard losses, and then to not quite have that happen is super exciting, because I just feel primed to okay, this is what we're expecting. It's going to be 10% worse, just because that's what's happened in the last few elections. So to go into this one thinking it's going to be bad and then have it not be bad is just so exciting.
I mean, it was, certainly unexpected. And I think the real repudiation of this extremist politics, this extremism that we're seeing in our national politics, and also that abortion really became the key driving issue, particularly in states where abortion would be at risk. So there were some states where Democrats didn't fare as well. Florida is an example. Florida is now a very firmly established red state.
Not a
New York
state.
No, not really. New York, where Republicans did quite well. Republicans picked up 6 congressional seats in the state of New York.
I think in every single district in New York, it moved farther red.
But in New York, and actually in Florida, abortion's really not on the ballot. Even in Florida, they have a 15-week ban, right? So you go up to 15 weeks. Still unacceptable, right? But sort of different. In New York, there's no sort of imaginable scenario where abortion access would be eroded in New York State. But in a state like Pennsylvania, in a state like Michigan, if you look at Arizona, if you even look at Nevada, I think we're going to win. I think clearly Mark Kelly's going to win in Arizona, and it looks like if you look at the Nevada race that's up, the votes that are outstanding are from Clark County, the Democratic stronghold where Las Vegas is. If we pick up both of those seats, that means you have a Democratic Senate, and then whatever happens with this runoff in Georgia, which I think Raphael Warnock has a darn good chance of winning. That would be an additional pickup. So very significant.
Yeah. And there's a very small chance that we might keep the House, but there's a chance, which is not.
Well, and that the margin is so small. If you look at President Biden's approval ratings, if you look at the headwinds in the economy, inflation, this should be, with historical precedent, this should have been a 40, 20, like a 30, 40, 60 seat loss in the House. This is going to be, probably it's going to be a Republican majority, maybe with just under a handful of votes. That is a really hard caucus to wrangle. This is a really best case scenario,
right?
And I think a real repudiation of the extremist tactics and a real endorsement of what I think broadly we've seen Democrats doing. Which look, we've got some critiques on, but it's a fascinating time in American politics.
Typically, the party in power loses about 20 seats going into midterms.
At least,
right?
That best case scenario.
So the fact that we're potentially losing
a handful,
right, is just such great news.
And it was a huge rainbow wave.
Right.
So, LGBTQ candidates getting elected up and down the ticket. So far, 436 out candidates have been elected across the country. It's a 60% win rate,
which is awesome.
It's 100 more candidates than ran and won in 2020. This is all from our friends at the LGBTQ Victory Fund, which we love and who come to Provincetown and we support. But some really big highlights, right? Not only just Maura Healey, we don't have one, but we're going to have two lesbian governors in this country. Tina Kotek.
Lesbians in charge of everything.
Honestly, it's they put women in charge of everything.
Honestly.
But, Tina Kotek's going to be the next governor from Oregon. She had a really hard fought race, really interesting dynamics. Eric Russell in Connectic's going to be the next treasurer of the state of Connecticut, breaking a glass ceiling to have the first Black queer person elected statewide. Eric Sorensen is going to be the first openly LGBTQ person to go to Congress to represent Illinois. And we reelected, some fabulous people all across the country. I think one sour note, Sean Patrick Maloney in New York, who's served for some time, is a dashing, effective congressman. He lost his reelection race in New York. And so that is definitely a loss. But overall, a real historic margins for LGBT candidates. We still need to elect something like 30,000 people across the country to get to parity and representation, but we're working on it. We're getting there.
Well, it's just to be a queer person and to throw your hat into the ring for politics and open yourself up to that type of ridicule is hard. You know what I mean?
I think it's challenging for anyone who runs and serves, but I think particularly, as a queer person, there's a real but also it's really important, and I think that we're seeing that voters really respond to competent, talented, skilled candidates, right? Yeah. And that's why these folks are getting elected. They're not getting elected because they're gay. They're getting elected because people believe in them, right? And they see that what the promise that they have to offer and their track record of success. So it was a good election night. And Massachusetts, we won our ballot initiative on the Fair Share Amendment. We're going to ask millionaires and billionaires to just pay a little bit more on their taxes. It's going to fund another $1 billion in education and transportation. And question 4 was also passed. So we're removing citizenship requirements for driver's licenses. This is something the legislature did earlier in the year. Big important stuff around supporting immigrants in our communities. And this is real, right? I've got a friend who I went to elementary school with. She came here as a dreamer. She currently can't drive. And if you're making a life on Cape Cod in the Outer Cape and you can't drive and you have a kid, so this is really going to help people and provide more safety on our streets as well. You're going to have to be have a license, and you're going to have car insurance to be able to drive. So Good stuff.
I think the biggest takeaway from this past election is that like everyone, I know it's like it's always the biggest takeaway, but like everyone has to vote. The shame that I imposed upon my friends that I heard just like, oh, I didn't make it. I was like, what?
Well, and from a Provincetown perspective, consistently we are winning these county-wide races on the Outer Cape. And of course, the Outer Cape, we hand count our ballots in Provincetown, we hand count our ballots in Truro. So you're always waiting for those ballots to be counted, right? But the margins in these races, in 2018, we won a county commissioner's race by 516 votes. That was out of P-Town. Donna's race would not have been won without very strong support from the Outer Cape. So for Provincetown and Outer Cape voters, you're really changing the course of the outcomes here. So it is really important that you vote and turn out. And shout out to you and Cooper and CJ Brooke and a few other folks who did vote today, door hangers. You might have gotten a little reminder on Tuesday morning on your door saying, hey, you've got to vote. That kind of organizing strategy is really how you ensure that you can win and get a buffer and remind people to vote and turn out.
Yeah, I think in the future it's like kind of, and I'll probably do this. I'm going to pick 20 friends and just like text them weeks before the election, be like, are you voting? Do you have a plan? Is it mail-in voting? Is it early voting? It's a day of voting. Just like figure it out, make a plan, and see it through.
Yeah. All right, we're going to get Kelly Fields.
Yeah, we have a little video. Perfect. You're playing the food and wine one, the 3-minute one?
Yep.
Perfect. We have a video that Matt King put together. It's a little glimpse into what the Food and Wine Festival was like this past weekend, so check it out.
Oh, yay! Good citizens of Provincetown, epicures, bon vivants, and wine enthusiasts throughout the land. Be it known from here to across the salty sea that the second annual Provincetown Food and Wine Festival has begun.
Edit.
to eyeball. He won holy roller. He got head down to his knees. Got to be a joker. He just do what he please. Yeah.
Be sure to check out the first weekend in November right here, or right there in Provincetown next year. It's a really fun weekend.
Well, we're right here in New Orleans,
Yeah.
and we're with Kelly Fields.
That's right.
Hi, Kelly.
Hi.
How does it feel to be back?
It feels really good. It's a little surreal. It's the first time I've been back in New Orleans since moving to P-Town, just to be in New Orleans. So
Wow.
I'm excited to see what happens.
And you were in New Orleans for how long? A zillion years.
20-something years, off and on. Yeah.
What brought you? Did you move directly from? Because you grew up in Ohio.
No, I grew up in Charleston, South Carolina.
Your
I was born in Ohio.
Your
but I don't say
Wikipedia
that.
page says Ohio.
I have a Wikipedia page.
You do have a
Wow.
Wikipedia
Who knew?
page. What brought you to New Orleans initially?
I moved here in 1996 to go to college, and then started cooking here, and here I am. Basically, I started cooking. I fell in love with it immediately. I went to help a friend who had a bakery here. I'd never done it professionally before, and I haven't looked back since.
Is that what you came here to go to school for?
No, I was studying chemistry, which
It's
I mean,
quite
it's
cool.
essentially the
quite
same
fits,
thing.
Yeah,
especially
totally.
with baking. I mean,
baking
it is chemistry.
Yeah, it's just a more delicious version of it. If you're good at it.
I think
Yeah.
I think you've got some talent there.
Yeah.
And where are you staying in town?
I'm staying with friends. I have two twin, they call me Uncle Dad, two twin little girls that are almost 2 who I'm going to spend as much time as I can between
Hurricanes
all the
and the
debauchery.
wedding. Yeah, the debauchery.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
Hurricane.
Yeah, hurricanes.
And you had a restaurant here for a number of
I
years,
did,
right?
yeah.
Tell us about Willa Jean and its origin. And
Yeah, so I opened a restaurant here in New Orleans in 2015, named it after my grandmother, Willa Jean. It's in the Central Business District. If you're in town, you should go, even though I don't own it anymore. It is a bakery, bar, and restaurant all in one. It's all like everything I love about hospitality in one space. Biscuit sandwiches. I believe they still have, I put a dish on the menu called a hangover bowl because it's what we all ate to be able to start our
so
heart.
what is in that hangover bowl? Harrison, take notes.
Yeah.
It was cheesy grits, whatever sort of like meat was around. We did
Whatever meat's
a braised short rib situation, fried egg, crunchy onions.
Oh my God.
You know, stuff to get your
Yeah.
heart started in the
Yeah.
morning when you
Yeah.
have to work a 12-hour shift. So I believe that's still there. So
No, whenever I've been out the past couple days while I've been here, anytime you see grits on the menu,
you get them?
okay, I love
Do you love
grits.
them?
I love
Oh,
grits.
amazing.
Oh, New Orleans is like, this is the kind of city you come to and you're like, I'm here to eat.
Mhm.
Like,
Yes.
I'm here to eat.
And
I'm
drink.
going to eat like everything, I guess, and drink, and have like baked,
I mean-
but the food in this city. I mean, just the food culture here
Mhm.
is so rich, and I think a reflection of what this place is, right? This whole
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I think it's really, a melting pot of what American cuisine is and why it is what it is. It like tells the whole history and the story about how the South came to be. Yeah. I love it. I'm ready to eat.
Yeah.
Are there any places you're like definitely gonna make it to this weekend? Have you thought that far ahead?
I haven't thought that far. I mean, living in P-Town, I realized this coming here. I'm like, why is it hard to make plans? I can't make decisions. But I realized in P-Town, like, you leave your house, and what happens, happens.
Right.
And you don't have to plan for anything. Like, I went on a bike ride on Tuesday and voted and ran into somebody at a breakfast date and then met somebody else for coffee, ended up at lunch. You don't have to make decisions.
Yeah.
So I'm going to try that approach with New Orleans.
Well, that is a strategy.
There's enough
Yeah.
P-Town people in New Orleans that
Yeah.
could very likely
Yeah.
happen.
I was very type A when I lived here, and I look forward to experiencing it as a P-Town sort of vibe now.
So for townies who are in New Orleans for this weekend or if you're coming later this winter, what are like the not missed things here? Like what would you say like you've like got to go to while you're here?
I would say for breakfast, go get some pastries at Levy Bakery. It's uptown, right off Magazine and 9th. I think Molly's Rise and Shine is great for breakfast.
Those are the pastries that are
Yeah, I
inside
brought a
made
bunch
for
of
us.
those today.
Oh my God, that's still my heart.
Oh, so good. For lunch, I love turkey in the wolf for a casual vibe. That collard green melt sandwich is the best sandwich I've ever had. Sorry, Rebecca and Sean. But it is the best sandwich I've ever had in my life. What else? I love the Chloe. I love all the New Orleans spots. Like Clancy's is like an institution uptown. It's like old school crab ravago and oysters and like all the stuff you want, gumbo, all that stuff. And dinner, it's very hard to get a bad meal.
Yeah.
So literally anywhere that's open in New Orleans,
Which
I would
is
recommend.
that's a statement. I would
Yeah.
not. I would not say that in Boston. I would not say that.
I would
in
not say that.
Provincetown,
No,
You know.
no.
Yeah.
I would not say that.
God no.
Professional
The bar walk is not even
opinion.
the bar
No. Absolutely not.
It was
So
so-
many things to love.
You came into the Red Inn one day, and I, my manager who grew up in New Orleans, transitioned years. I think that's the person who owns a restaurant, my favorite brunch place in New Orleans.
Oh, I love
I was
that.
like, oh, Kelly.
Oh, Kelly.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're legendary.
I'll take it.
Yeah.
I'll take it for that reason. Sure.
You're
Yeah.
kind of known for your biscuits. What?
Yeah.
How did that come to be?
At Willie Jean, we serve there's a whole section on the menu called the biscuit situation, and there were like biscuit sandwiches, and then obviously you could build your own. And we got to a point where we were serving like thousands of these biscuits a day, and then this woman came in named Beyonce and got them, and it got on like TMZ, it got on E, it like. The Oprah effect is small in comparison to the Beyonce effect. So like the next day, it was like 1,635 chicken biscuits, which I was not
The
prepared
next
for.
day.
Yeah, it was instant.
Wow. How do you
Were
You know,
But you were
like,
prepared.
talk about being in the
No,
weeds and the
so,
biscuit weeds?
in the weeds. The wheels are coming off. There's a grocery store across the street. I bought every piece of chicken they had. I was borrowing chicken from restaurants around me, like just trying to keep up to some sort of degree. But
That's wild.
yeah,
Oh.
yeah.
I did not know that story. That's wild.
Yeah, I was not ready. I was not ready. So
But you made it. You made it work.
yeah, and then now people call me Kelly Biscuits. Apparently,
You've got one cookbook out already, and
I do.
I heard a rumor you're working on a second.
Yes, I'm working on a second book. It's about brunch.
Ah.
We'll see how fast I can get that done. Brunch is apparently making a comeback.
Is it?
It is.
Did it go away?
Did it go? Where did it go?
No, because this was the argument I had with my book editor and not my editor, my co-author and my agent is like, brunch is a gay meal,
Yeah.
Yeah.
right? Like it's
Maybe that's why
it's
we
just-
don't think it ever went away. 'cause
Yeah.
it's
It didn't for us.
Yeah.
And when I opened Willie Jean, I was like, I want a brunch restaurant, and nobody understood it. And I was like, no, it's like, now we call the book, it doesn't have a title, Brunch, a gay celebration. And you have to do the gesture.
Can it just be called brunch?
Yeah, I would love it. I would love it. So, Dan Levy has a brunch TV show coming out, and like all this stuff is like popping up. So now I've got
Largely driven by queer people.
100%.
Yes, 100%. Yeah.
Yeah, I have some queer friends who will be on the show and hopefully do really well. I don't know.
Are you
I'm
gonna be on the show?
No, I'm not on the show.
Okay.
I am terrible on TV, as we're all learning.
No.
Please.
Thrilled.
So yeah, I need to hit the gas on that, and I guess my winter plans have been decided.
Yeah, that's what Winter in Provincetown is for.
I guess
Writing
so.
books.
Writing
I
books.
wish.
Everyone's writing a book this
Yeah.
winter.
Oh, are you working on yours?
No.
No. Come on. No.
Working on sleeping.
And so we covered the food items for visitors, who are here. We want a little nightlife. What are your favorite? What are
Nightlife.
your favorite little spots?
I love. There's so many little tiny bars here that
Mm.
aren't like gay specific, but I enjoy them. Like Bar Tonique, Jewel of the South is really great. Cane and Table is a really super dreamy place to take a date. It's like, oh, it's so cute and moody. But I love Good Friends.
Oh, yeah.
I do.
P-Town entirely took over Good Friends last night.
I love that.
I was at
I
Good
love
Friends
that.
yesterday afternoon.
Yeah.
Jared's and I went for a little walk. We were trying to meet up with you, but that was impossible.
We were just
Um,
like wandering.
It's New
And
Orleans.
no, but Good
Yeah.
Friends is
Shit
like
happens.
you walk into Good Friends. It's like I don't know, like
It's
1 in
all
the
your good
afternoon.
friends.
All your good friends are there. In this case, not many, but
Yeah.
you just get a little cocktail
Yeah.
and you start walking.
A hurricane,
Yeah.
maybe?
Why don't we do this in P-Town? Can you work on that?
Actually, I first have to get happy hour enabled,
No.
and then
I will
I'll
be,
pay
lo-
full
I will
price
be,
if I
I
can
will
walk
be
in.
lobbying
Happy hour
against
is an-
happy hour.
it's an
The
economic
worst.
engine.
No, it is not. It's
Not
awful.
for restaurants. It's not.
No, of course not. But it's
Not for restaurant, and it's not even good for the consumer either. I'm
Yeah.
lobbying hard against it.
I will
Sorry,
pay
Julian.
full
As-
price if I can walk down Commercial Street.
As
And
context
Yeah,
to our
I can be into
viewers,
that.
you know,
I filed an amendment to a Senate Economic Development package to enable happy hour as a local option, so the municipality could decide if they want to do it. And it was passed by the Senate. We didn't get it finished. Governor Baker opposed it, but I actually think, really, I was down in Boston, right, on Wednesday. If you look at the effects of the pandemic on these downtown, on our downtowns, people aren't going to work, right? And so we've got to find a way to bring people back into our downtowns, to have some revitalization. This is a real challenge, particularly in the restaurant industry, right? So I really see happy hour as a tool for placemaking, right? It's not going to really make, I don't think it's determinative. I think it depends what your restaurant model is, right?
Sure.
You are talking about discounting the cheapest item you buy, right? So compared to Massachusetts, you have to discount food currently. But anyway, we weren't successful. But we're going to come back.
In my opinion, happy hour is a race to the bottom. It's who can serve shittier shit for cheaper. And think about what the Boston restaurant scene was like before we took away happy hour and what it has become, and that is because they took away happy hour.
Harrison, I don't think either of us were here before 1986 or
but having worked in the
1984.
Boston restaurant industry for over 15 years, I know a lot of its history.
Well, we'll have to do a happy hour debate.
We'll do a happy hour
Except
panel.
at the Red Inn.
Yeah, Rob our happy hour at the Red
Rob our
Inn.
happy hour at the Red
See
Inn.
you in May.
But here in New Orleans, there's not only happy hour, but you can
There's open
container law.
So the interesting thing is, you can walk down, as long as it's not in glass, you can have whatever you want, wherever you want, as far as alcohol in the street is concerned. In your car, you can have as many alcoholic beverages open, one less than there are people in the car.
Really?
Or if you go through the drive-through daiquiri spot and they give you your daiquiri because you drove through and ordered a daiquiri, they have to leave 1 inch of paper on the straw. So if you get pulled over and you have that 1 inch of paper on, it doesn't matter if you took the lid off and drank it, you're good. But the most interesting thing is when the pandemic hit, they took it away. We could not sell alcohol to go, even though it was all order and pickup because restaurants couldn't be open. We weren't allowed to sell alcohol to go.
And we did cocktails to
did
go.
the opposite.
Yeah, everybody switched, including New Orleans. New Orleans was like, oh no, we got to close these bars.
Bizarre.
How bizarre is that?
I mean, it's a very...
It's New Orleans. It's the most New Orleans.
Well, I guess
thing to do.
all the people viewed it as a way to modify service to decrease human-to-human contact. They were like, well, take away the to-go drinks so they won't even come out. And we were like, we'll allow to-go drinks so they don't sit at bars.
Maybe.
Yeah.
But it's a huge revenue stream for every restaurant here. And it was just,
totally.
snatched away at a time when it was most needed. So
But
I have feelings about it.
I mean, you've only just gotten here, but it'd be interesting to see how this place feels. Now that we're sort of, however many, 2+ years, so kind of like through COVID, and we're still in a pandemic. But
Biden said it was over.
I had it last week, so
Right.
You're going to be good to go this weekend then.
yeah, tested negative.
Well,
Great.
we've got a lot of celebrating to do.
Yeah, let's go have a hurricane.
And to Hartley and Spalding, who are just such wonderful friends and members of our community, and just certainly showed up and helped make this show happen. Oh my goodness! Oh, and there's
And
Brewski.
Brewski's going to be at the party too.
Oh my god, I love a dog at a wedding.
I love Brewski more than anything.
I know you're his little
we're besties.
Yeah, Daddy. Let's watch Daddy.
Thank you so much for co-hosting with me today, Julian, and thanks for sitting down with us, Kelly.
Oh, anytime.
Yeah.
This is so
Thank
fun.
you to all our sponsors: the Crown and Anchor, the Provincetown Brewing Company, Cafe Heaven, the Red Inn, Project Valor Sailing. I know I'm missing
Be Well
some.
Cannabis.
Be Well Cannabis. I usually have to do this with I usually have Bob supporting me. I think I got them all though.
Did you got them all?
Yeah,
Well, as long as we didn't leave out Be Well, you got to remember.
Right, Madam Howard Metal Workshop on Bradford Street. Thank you to all of our viewers. Thanks for tuning in an hour later. Some of you, I'm sure, probably loved that. Thank you to Terrence and Brett for allowing us to
Yes, this
film
gorgeous,
this
beautiful home.
gorgeous home. And thanks for waking up in Provincetown.
Wherever you are.
Nailed it. We'll see you next week.
Bye.
Good morning, everybody.
Thank you so much. You're fun.
Yeah, you're great.
Wake up in Provincetown.
Yeah, I mean, you probably
Yeah.
This week featuring Can I have some coffee? Make it strong, please. Hey. Ho. Hey. Ho. Whee! No, really, can I have some coffee?